could I not? How could I not do that?
It was a moment. One of the things that I realize now, early in my life, I learned was that one should see what can be, unburdened by what has been. And there are some funny stories. I was just sharing with someone backstage. You know, so I witnessed this, as I write about in the book, you know, from my stroller's eye view. And there's a funny family story about how, so my mother's marching with the extended family. I talk about like Aunt Mary and Uncle Freddie in the book. And she would tell the story about how, so they're marching. And this is back when strollers didn't really have armrests and seatbelts. So they're marching away and, you know, shouting and all of that. And then I think it was my Uncle Freddie, you know, looked down and looked in the stroller, which was empty, and said, "Where's Kamala?" And apparently they left me like a block behind. I'd fallen out the stroller. There you go. And then my mother would tell a funny story about how, like, one day and I was fussing, and you know, and so I'm fussing and fussing. It's much cuter when she would tell the story, but she'd say, so then she would look down at me and, "Kamala, what do you want? What do you want?" And I looked back up at her and I said, "Fweedom."
Did you get that energy from your parents, or the thought of, hey, I have to fight for what's right, and I got to get out there? And I mean, when were you out there protesting?
Well, I was in a stroller. And so I was out there. And in fact, my mother used to have a very funny story about I was fussing and she said, "Kamala, what do you want?" And I said, and this is how she would say it. And she said, "Kamala, what do you want?" And I said, "Fweedom." No.
Oh, come on. Fweedom.
It was a much cuter story when she would tell it, but that's the story she told.
But when you went to your family and said, "I'm going to be a lawyer, but I'm not just going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a prosecutor," folks probably thought you lost your mind. A prosecutor?
Yeah.
Given freedom. Mm-hmm. What did you say to them when they asked?
Well, you're right, and I had to, with many of them, defend my decision like one would a thesis. And what I said then is what I frankly maintain today.
I mean, remember, back before she became vice president, Kamala Harris did a puff piece with Elle magazine, and in that story, she told the tale of going to a civil rights march with her parents and getting upset after she fell from her stroller. Now, the article has Kamala Harris telling the story like this. "My mother tells me about how I'm fussing," Harris says, and she's like, "Baby, what do you want? What do you need?" And I just looked at her, this is Kamala Harris speaking, and I said, "Fweedom." Yeah, for real. Now, a lot of observers at the time noted that this sounded awfully like a story Martin Luther King Jr. had told to Playboy magazine way back in 1965, back in the days when Playboy was not only a magazine, but also, yes, worth reading for the articles. In the piece, King said, "I will never forget a moment in Birmingham when a white policeman accosted a little girl, 7 or 8 years old, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. 'What do you want?' the policeman asked her gruffly, and the little girl looked him straight in the eye and answered, 'Fweedom.' She couldn't even pronounce it," King said, "but she knew. It was beautiful." Well, that's an inspiring story, and that's why I am skeptical for thinking that Kamala Harris's little kitty conservative caper may have been stretching the truth just a bit. Because at this point, I mean, it's like, really, where does the TV show Veep end and the Kamala Harris vice presidency begin?